My name is Hannah, and I never thought I'd be the kind of person to share my private life online. But after what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, I realized my story isn't just mine, it's a warning. Last month, the person I trusted, most my fiancé of 3 years, betrayed me in a way that made me question every moment of our time together. And the one who helped him, my own stepsister, Claire, a week before our wedding. They vanished, no warning, no explanation, just gone. And then, as if tearing my life apart wasn't enough, Claire started sending me postcards from every city they visited, taunting me, mocking the love I thought I had. This isn't just about heartbreak. It's about humiliation and payback. The months leading up to the wedding felt like something out of a dream. James and I would come home from work, kick off our shoes, and curl up on the couch with cake samples balanced on our laps, arguing over which flavor would make guests happiest. We laugh at ridiculous Pinterest ideas, debate whether we should do a slow romantic first dance or surprise everyone with something choreographed, and tease each other over who was more Britazilla. Claire, my stepsister, floated in and out of the process like a helpful breeze. She'd offer to help with the seating chart, browse venues online with me, or tag along for dress fittings. I thought she was being supportive. We even spent an entire spa day together, sipping champagne and talking about how she couldn't wait to see me walk down the aisle. Still, there were moments, tiny cracks that I ignored. Casual remarks from her about how flirty James seemed with waitresses, or how charming he could be in a way that might make some women suspicious. I laughed them off, thinking she was just being her usual dramatic self. After all, James was mine. The families were buzzing with excitement. Our SVPs were coming in, and the final details were falling perfectly into place. The dresses were fitted, the flowers were ordered, and the countdown had reached single digits. I remember sitting in bed one night, invitations stacked neatly on my dresser, thinking, this is the calm before the happiest storm of my life. What I didn't realize was that it wasn't the calm before happiness. It was the calm before the kind of destruction that shatters everything you thought you knew. 5 days before the wedding, James started acting strange. He'd come home late, eyes glued to his phone, claiming work was piling up and that he needed space to deal with the stress. I told myself it was normal, cold feet happen, right? Still, something about the way he avoided my gaze made my chest tighten. Claire became harder to reach too. She said she was busy helping a friend across town, her tone breezy but vague. I brushed it off, telling myself I was imagining things. I didn't want to be the paranoid fiancé who made mountains out of molehills. 3 days before the wedding, James didn't come home at all. His phone went straight to voicemail, Claire's number suddenly out of service. My parents urged me to relax, to trust that everything would work out. But the pit in my stomach felt like it was swallowing me whole. Then came the morning of our rehearsal dinner. I woke to a faint rustling outside my bedroom door. When I opened it, there was a single folded note on the floor, Claire's handwriting. Just one sentence. Don't wait for us. Stop. My hands shook as I read it. My brain tried to convince me it was some kind of cryptic joke, but my heart already knew better. The confirmation came minutes later, in the worst possible way through a friend's Instagram story. James and Claire at the airport, holding hands like newlyweds. That's when the floor truly fell out from under me. The full truth didn't just arrive, it landed like a wrecking ball. The very next morning, my cousin, who works in Atlanta, texted me a grainy but unmistakable photo from the airport. James and Claire boarding a flight together. They weren't just traveling companions, they had matching luggage, fingers intertwined, bodies angled toward each other in the kind of closeness that leaves no room for doubt. The looks on their faces, pure intimacy. I collapsed on my kitchen floor, phone slipping from my hand. It was betrayal in high definition. But that wasn't the worst of it. 2 weeks later, I opened my mailbox to find a postcard from Niagara Falls on the back. In Claire's looping handwriting, thought you'd enjoy the view if you were here. It was cruel, calculated, humiliating. Over the next 2 months, the postcards kept coming from Paris, Rome, Cancun. Each one carried a fresh wound disguised as a cheerful message. Finally with someone who truly appreciates me, or you wouldn't believe how free I feel. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a traveling performance meant to grind me down. They weren't content to steal my fiancé. They wanted me to watch them enjoy it. Friends and family began asking if I was okay every time a new card appeared. My heartbreak had become an ongoing sideshow in their glossy vacation diary of deceit. That's when the realization set in. This wasn't going to fade with time. They weren't going to stop. If I wanted peace, I couldn't wait for it. I'd have to take it back myself. 5. Public humiliation element approximately 280 words. Claire didn't stop at postcards. She went digital suddenly. Her Instagram and Facebook feeds became a curated highlight reel of her new life with James. Every photo was deliberate sunset dinners in Santorini, champagne toast in Venice, snorkeling in the Maldives, and the kicker, these were all the exact destinations James and I had planned for our honeymoon. My phone lit up nonstop with notifications as mutual friends liked, commented, and messaged. Some reached out in quiet sympathy, "I can't believe this." Others said nothing, afraid to get involved. But silence sometimes hurts more than words at family gatherings. Claire's absence was deafening, yet her presence lingered. In every conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. Even at work, I wasn't safe. By the time I walked into the break room, the whispers had already traveled there. I caught glances, pitying eyes, and the occasional awkward smile meant to hide. Gossip. The postcards kept piling up in a drawer I couldn't bring myself to empty. I told myself they were evidence proof of what they'd done. But deep down, I knew they were also fuel. And the more they flaunted their happiness, the more the shame and humiliation twisted into something sharper. Rage. If they wanted to turn my heartbreak into a public spectacle, fine. But I was done playing the role of the victim in their little show. It was time to change the script. For weeks, I was a ghost in my own life. Food lost its taste, nights blurred into mornings, and sleep came in fractured pieces, always interrupted by the same looping images of James's smile, Claire's laugh, the two of them together. I replayed every interaction, every holiday. Dinner, trying to pinpoint when the rot had set in. My therapist said the self-blame was normal, but knowing that didn't quiet the voice telling me I'd missed something obvious. Friends became my anchor, pulling me into dinners I didn't want to attend, texting me until I replied, reminding me I wasn't shattered beyond repair. I deleted my social media apps, terrified that one accidental scroll would plunge me back into the spiral. But somewhere in the haze, a realization took root. They weren't just happy they wanted me crushed, they wanted me small, silent, humiliated, and that thought lit a spark. I started jotting down ideas not for reckless revenge, but for something cleaner, sharper. Justice. The kind that would let me walk away with my dignity intact and leave them choking on their stop. My plan had two simple goals, and the humiliation and reclaim my dignity. The first step was gathering every shred of evidence, screenshots of their posts, scans of the smug postcards, even flight records my cousin managed to pull. I wasn't interested in petty jabs or messy drama. I wanted facts so airtight that no one could twist the narrative. Then came the quiet outreach. I began calling and meeting with mutual friends and family, not to gossip, but to prepare the ground. I spoke calmly, without venom, and laid out a timeline of events, dates, places, proof, no speculation, no emotional outbursts. I could see the shift in their faces as the puzzle pieces clicked into place. But the centerpiece of my plan was an open letter, not a rant, not an emotional meltdown. A carefully crafted, brutally honest account of the betrayal from the airport photo to the last postcard. It wouldn't be sent privately, it would be posted publicly, addressed not only to James and Claire, but to everyone who had been silently watching from the sidelines. It wasn't designed to destroy their lives, only to make sure the truth lived outside their control. When they stepped foot back in Charleston, my letter would be waiting for them. And for the first time in weeks, I felt in control again. The night before James and Claire were due back, I hosted a quiet gathering at my apartment. The guest list was intentional close friends, a few family members, and those who had only heard their side of the story, over glasses of wine and plates of snacks. I laid everything out like evidence in a courtroom, the exact dates, the screenshots, the smug postcards, the airport photos. I spoke evenly, without trembling or tears. My tone wasn't bitter, it was surgical. Some sat in stunned silence. Others shook their heads, realizing they'd been fed a narrative about us growing apart. Before the wedding, by the end, no one could claim ignorance of what had really happened. At 8 a.m. the next morning, my open letter went live on Facebook and Instagram. It was stripped of insults, just a meticulous timeline and the truth, posted for everyone to see. Within hours, the ripple began. Supportive comments flooded in. Friends who had been distant reached out to apologize. Mutual acquaintances unfollowed them. The family members who'd been defending them stopped. And then, the final sign my plan had worked, the postcard stopped arriving. For the first time since I'd known under my door, I felt the weight shift. They no longer controlled the story. 3 weeks later, James's name appeared in my inbox. The subject line read, Can we talk? His email was long, meandering, and laced with self-pity. He claimed he'd been confused that the wedding pressure had made him question everything, and that Claire had made him feel alive again. Buried between the excuses was a request to meet in person so we could clear the air. It read less like remorse and more like damage control. Claire's approach was shorter. One text, no greeting. Guess you got your payback. Neither message carried an ounce of genuine apology. They weren't sorry for what they'd done, only uncomfortable with what had followed. I didn't give them the closure they were fishing. For no reply to the email, no reaction to the text, my silence was my statement. Over the next few weeks, I noticed a shift. Their social media, once a parade of romantic getaways and inside jokes, fell silent. Friends who used to tag them stopped. The group photos dwindled. At family events, their names weren't brought up, not in defense, not in gossip, just not at all. The control they clung to for months had slipped through their fingers. And the best part, I didn't have to lift another finger. The truth had already done its work. I moved into a new apartment in a part of town I'd always loved: tree-lined streets, quiet cafes, the hum of life without the weight of old memories. I painted the walls in warm, earthy tones and filled the space with lush plants that seemed to breathe with me for the first time in months. Home felt like safety. Work became lighter, more rewarding, now that I wasn't dragging my heart through each day. I booked a solo trip to Santorini, one of the places James and I had once dreamed of visiting. This time, the sunsets were mine alone, captured in photos. That told a different story. Not of us, but of me. James and Claire drifted into static background noise in a life that was finally moving forward. Every now and then, I'd hear rumors trouble finding steady work. Fewer friends in their orbit, but I didn't linger on them. The truth had already run its course. I wasn't chasing closure anymore. I had built it, brick by brick, in the form of a life they could no longer touch, and in the quiet moments, I realized something. I didn't just survive them. I had outgrown them. Betrayal by family is its own brand of cruelty. It's not just a broken heart, it's a fracture, and the foundation you thought was unshakable. It forces you to question not only the people you trusted, but the very idea of home and loyalty. And yet, in that devastation, I learned something I couldn't have grasped any other way. Boundaries aren't just self-protection. They're survival. Forgiveness isn't a moral obligation. No matter what movies or well-meaning relatives say, you are not required to reopen the door to someone who has shown you. They will burn the house down again. Sometimes the strongest act of love for yourself is to bolt that door shut, turn the key, and walk away without looking back. Trust, once shattered, can't be rebuilt with half-hearted apologies, cryptic texts, or performative gestures. It can only be rebuilt by actions, and when those actions never come, you're allowed to stop waiting. This story, my story, isn't about clinging to bitterness. It's about reclaiming authorship of my own life. I refuse to stay trapped in the version of events they were trying to tell. I chose the harder but cleaner path to write a new narrative without them in it. If you're in the thick of betrayal right now, remember this: you are not powerless. You are not voiceless. You get to choose whether you keep living in someone else's chapter or whether you turn the page and start your own. So that's how my stepsister and my fiancé turned what should have been my wedding week into a three-ring circus, and how I quietly, methodically, took the stage back. What started as our game became my turning point. Months later, I still get messages from people, some friends, some total strangers, telling me that my story gave them the courage to confront their own betrayers, to finally speak their truth, instead of swallowing it. That's the part that sticks with me the most, the ripple effect. But now, I'm curious about you. If you were in my shoes, standing in the wreckage of what should have been the happiest week of your life, would you have done the same? Would you have gone public, put the facts out there for everyone to see? Or would you have kept it private, dealt with it quietly behind closed doors? And here's the question that still lingers for me. What if the postcards hadn't stopped? Would you have ignored them, burned them, or sent something back? I'm genuinely interested because while my story is done, the lessons and perspectives keep evolving. Drop your thoughts. Share your story, I promise. This is a space where betrayal doesn't get the last word.